When we think of innovation, we usually think of wonderful inventions like Uber, for example, or Tesla, or Facebook, or something like that. Really fast-changing, very innovative industries. However, most of us, of course, are in much more homogeneous and stable businesses. I bet most of you are in companies where in your industry everybody does pretty much the same thing, and everybody has been doing that same thing for a long time. Probably how you do business is not all that different from how you did it 10 years ago. Now actually I would say that innovation is even more relevant in an industry like that, where everybody does always pretty much the same and has been doing it like that for a long time. Because those are industries that often have antiquated practices. And innovation by stop doing things that don't work anymore is often a much more plausible and perhaps even more lucrative way to innovate. To give a very brief example, as you know, newspapers for decades, in fact centuries, were very big. It's only in around 2004 that The Independent started making a smaller newspaper. And all of a sudden realized that customers quite like that. That's the type of practices that I'm thinking about. Companies in industry where for a long time everybody does the same thing, but by changing one of those practices and stopping to do something that doesn't work anymore, you can actually have a much more lucrative source of innovation. That's easier said than done. I know that's a bit of a platitude, but it's also by definition the case. If it was very easy to spot that something was an antiquated practices and ripe for innovation, it would have disappeared. So antiquated practices are difficult to spot, precisely because everybody does them and everybody has been doing them for a long time. Now, we've actually already heard one way in which you're able to spot them. If in your industry there are certain key processes and you wonder about, hey, why do we do that way? And the answers you get from your colleagues and perhaps your competitors are, I don't know, that's how we've always done it and well, everybody does it this way. That's often a very good source for innovation. So just looking for that answer is one. The second one I would say is that antiquated practices often still give benefits in the short run, if alone because people expect organizations to behave that way. But often in the long run, they work differently. For example, in the IVF industry, so in vitro fertilization, many clinics select easy patients only to treat, because that makes them look better in terms of their success rate. We know from research, however, that the long-term consequences of that are pretty bad. Namely, you deprive yourself of valuable learning opportunities, which difficult patients offer. That's the thing you have to look out for. Practices that in the short run give you a benefit, but if you think them through, you think, actually, in the long run, they could be harmful. So look for that. Things you don't understand why they work that way, or things where you think, I'm not sure that in the long run they still are beneficial. I definitely think so. Work can be a great source of innovation. And in fact, we already heard why. In a way, how we organize work in many industries and in many companies is very similar and very homogeneous across companies. People work full-time, people work the same number of and types of tasks as other companies. Now that may very well be the case, but if you hear an industry and a practice where we say, well, everybody does it this way and everybody has pretty much been doing it this way for a very long time, that's a great source of innovation. Consider Eden McCallum in the consulting industry. And the consulting industry is very homogeneous and very stable. People work full-time, people do indeed customer acquisitions, they do customer assignments, and they do internal work in the consulting company like McKinsey. And that's fine. But Eden McCallum thought, we could do this differently in terms of the organization of work. We will operate a pool of freelance consultants, some of them working part-time, some of them working full-time, but everybody just does consulting assignments, so no customer acquisition, no internal work. Now that doesn't suit every consultant. Many people like the traditional way in which consulting companies are organized, but a substantial number of consultants did like that, and therefore gave Eden McCallum a competitive advantage in terms of recruiting good employees. That's a great source of innovation, organizing your work differently and hence attracting good employees, which then becomes the source of a sustainable competitive advantage.